Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast. We are spoilt today. The two legends that are China and Ali are back on the pod together as power couple / deadly duo. Also, we do have a dog as well with us. So there he is. Yeah. You always get extra points for dogs. Dogs are just so cool.
We've got another one, but he's antisocial.
Yeah.
Basically, your children.
Yeah.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about training, and this is going to be part of a series that's based around nailing the fundamentals of bodybuilding. And Ali, on the pod that we did, you said about don't forget what you got into bodybuilding for, and that really resonated with me because generally it's from a love of training. You think this is super cool, you start training more regularly, you get into different techniques, etc., and then you're like, maybe I could compete. Or potentially you get into competing because you see other people train and it sparks something in you. So this is going to be the second of this series. The first one was about stress management and recovery, which is often overlooked. And then this is going to lead into, the importance of training. And I remember when we spoke about doing this pod initially, Ali, and you said, training is such a big contribution. If you're not training properly and effectively, it's going to hold you back. So I don't know where you want to start because it's a pretty open bag, this one.
Okay, when it comes to training for me, I think I don't know if I said this to you in a voice note, if you want to transform your physique, training is the biggest priority. If you want to improve your health, nutrition is the biggest priority. If you want to make yourself healthier, you've got to look at your nutrition supplementation. If you want to grow glutes, delts, training has to be the fundamental for that. Now, when it comes to training itself, it's very, very specific and very, very individualized to the individual who wants to grow X, Y, or Z. Now, Huber said something very, very home truth, hitting hard about a month ago to me in regards to, I think a lot of amateurs, and I'm obviously in that category, think they need to grow X, Y, and Z. Especially men go, I need to grow my delta, I need to grow my arms. And it's most amateurs are not going to lose off a specific body part. They're going to lose on overall size and potentially condition, if you look at it from a general speaking. So we get so fixated on the nuances, and I think definitely the younger generation now with all this execution shit, and look, I teach the execution shit, but they're getting so caught up, but they're missing out on the fundamentals. She pulls 185. And I know she's an anomaly, and I accept that, but the reason why she progressed through the ranks so quickly is because she trains with the screw loose.
Yeah.
And then it's just refining it.
I think that's super important because I think you see so many people becoming obsessed with execution. And it is important. It is obviously really important, but it is that for me anyway, and how I've developed my physique, it's the training intensity that has taken it there. And I think that definition of what training hard is develops over time. What I thought was training hard 12 months ago is not the same as what it is now, and it hopefully won't be the same as what it is in 12 months time. And it's about developing that ability to train to failure and get a good execution along the way, but not becoming super obsessed with it that it detracts away from your training intensity.
Yeah, for sure, because it ends up being that minutia that you can really feed into in bodybuilding in general, right? There's so many things that you can monitor, and I've spoken about this on the pod before. If you start monitoring every single thing, like your heart rate every 5 minutes, your blood glucose, everything else, all of those little things, it turns you batshit crazy. And then it can have that knock-on effect with training if you're always looking at that rather than, like you say, the intensity as well, enjoyment in a weird cathartic way from training and following the plan.
We have this argument a lot. Well, not argument. Because you are you're execution king, and you're a lot better at execution than me. But I think it sometimes can take away that enjoyment factor out of it. And when you'll have it yourself, when there's a lift that you love in the gym, you'll nail it because you love it. If you become so fixated on making it 100% perfect, it can take away that enjoyment factor, which will take away your training intensity and therefore take away from your progress as well, in my opinion anyway.
So I've got a rule when it comes to China now. On more specific movements, I don't know, like single arm cable row, I would try and give her a few tweaks. When she puts 9 plates in a half squat, I'm going to shut the fuck up and leave her alone. Because at the end of the day, it's like whether or not. So this is where people get lost a little bit. Whether or not she puts her feet a little bit lower down to create greater moments onto the knee joints, she still puts 9 plates on a hack squat. So aside, by the way, so it's 18 plates in total. Now that's the same as me. Like that, she lifts the same as me. So no matter what, you've got so much tension going through that lower body, it is going to grow. Now, if she steps on stage and they go, okay, look, you need more quad, then there's discussion then about potentially need to change the execution to bias the quads a little bit more. But until that conversation happens, because China, when she got her feedback, was more just overall development. Like she's only been doing it for such a short period of time that she hasn't been in the gym long enough to really develop the tissue to the standard that she will be this year. So when she gets criticised this year by the judge, it's okay. What do you need more of? And then that's when the execution comes into it a little bit more. But as I said, like when she's fucking pulling 185, when she's hack squatting 9 plates, when she's putting 400k plus in the leg press, it's like just everyone just needs to shut the fuck up. Like if feet could be a little bit lower, probably, but not many people, never mind females in general, will put that weight on a machine. And I think that's where, like, when people criticize people like JP, it's like, you've got no right. Like, just shut up and just stay in your lane. Whereas, like, if someone is potentially doing something that could hurt themselves, then you might want to say something. But again, only if you feel like if you know the person. Does that make sense? Like, when it comes to more specific movements that you're trying to bias a specific thing, that's where I think execution a little bit more important. So, like, a single arm cable pull down, it's very, very easy to take that off the lats and put that maybe on the more upper back muscle if you just want to shift load. But when it comes to things like a squatting movement or a hip hinging movement, it's like it's so hard to bias certain things than that. Like just get strong, as strong as you, and then fine tweak it, but get strong first. As long as you don't do anything stupid and hit yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there is also the argument, I've heard this a lot with different people that do something like, say, a deadlift. Now, conventional deadlift, they've done it for years and they're maybe in the strongman route. And their technique isn't spot on, but they've always done it that way and they lift the fucking load off the floor. If they were to actually change it and focus on execution, they could end up injured, not being able to lift as much, not being able to do strongman. So there's an argument there almost in itself to, if it's a compound lift, you've always done it like that, and maybe the execution's off a little bit, but you're lifting the load, then changing it would potentially fuck you up in the other end of the spectrum. So it's
and it is all about this. Like I said, like the okay, reps and reserve and training to failure. There's this big fucking conversation.
I want to talk about this.
I've got my preference, okay, but it's not from any science, sort of unscientific, but it's not from any scientific background. I fucking just like training to failure. I like knowing when I write something down in my logbook, that is what I can do that day. And then when I come back to it next time, I hope I can do more that following day. If I can't, it's like, okay, is training volume too much? Have I not been recovering enough? Do I need to take some time off? When it comes to reps on reserve, I understand the data. I understand that it can work. And I've also done things like fortitude training where sometimes you need reps on reserve on certain exercises, like squatting-based movements. But I think it's extremely hard to gauge what 3 reps is, what 2 reps is in reserve. But even for very skilled athletes, never mind.
I would have no idea. I would have no idea what 2 reps in reserve, 3 reps in reserve was for me. And I mean, I've been training like 4 years. But I would really, don't think I would like that kind of training. So I don't think it would, well, I've never tried it, but I don't think I would like it because I like killing myself. But in the gym, but I don't understand how, I think it would take such a long time to understand what that is for you. I really don't. I can't get my head around it. I can get the science out how it works, but mentally understanding that for your body, where is that?
I totally get what you mean. I didn't really use reps in reserve for most of my competitive career or whatever we want to call it, and then I started. My coach uses it, and I started delving into a bit with different clients and things. And I guess for me, it's placed quite well in some phases when people are getting into training, and you can sort of give a rep range and you can say, this is roughly where you'd be, but it is quite a difficult thing to communicate. I know exactly what you mean.
So,
I don't know. I guess it's person dependent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it depends how you like training. And for me, it would take the enjoyment out of training. But I guess that's just me though, and it does obviously work for other people. But But I don't know, I think for a lot of people, it's like you'll stick to something like anything. You'll stick to something if you enjoy it. You'll progress with something the most that you enjoy, a split that you enjoy, exercises you enjoy, because that's how you're going to keep pushing and progressing in the gym. If you don't like it, you're not going to continue doing it.
And that's why I think it's good that you say it is very person dependent, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the thing with reps and reserve is what it's very, very good at is managing fatigue. Now, the thing where I debate the reps and reserve modalities and models is you do less sets, and I've got a friend who does reps and reserve. You do less sets and you don't train to failure. So you might do 2 sets and you leave 3 reps in reserve. And then as you progress through the weeks, you leave less reps in reserve, but you do more volume. So essentially what you're trying to do is overreach, aren't you?
Yeah, leading to a deload maybe.
Yeah, but here's my caveat here. If you can auto-regulate, so if you're going to the gym and go, feel a bit shit here, and then you just go, okay, I'm going to do half volume, and this takes time and experience to understand what your body can do, or you go, I feel a bit shit here, I'm not going to train today, I'm going to train the following day. You will continue to, because I'm a bit, my friend Nathan works with Joe Jeffrey. He's the person who follows like the reps and reserve model, and we talk about this all the time. Like, he was mentored by someone, and the guy said to him that he explained the reps and reserve, but he also said that you don't need to deload. You should never need to deload if you can auto-regulate things well. And this is something I'm playing with now. So I'm going to play around it to see, because I'm a big believer you've got to trial shit yourself before trying to give it off to people, so you can understand it and experience it. But that's my belief. If you can auto-regulate things well, and also there's a lot difference in failing on a pec fly to failing on an incline chest press. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a complete movement. So like on a deadlift, going to failure, I think, is such a risk that's not worth taking.
Yeah, tough.
On a line hamstring curl, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a single joint movement. The likelihood of hurting yourself is less. On a squatting based movement, like a natural squat, not a hack squat, because which you've got a fixed plane, potentially don't push the failure on that. But then on a leg extension, on a leg press, as long as you've got a spotter, on a hack squat, as long as you've got a spotter, and you can maintain proper execution in regards to your maintaining your stability within that exercise, your knees not going all over the place, and that, I think you can push to that level. So again, it's very exercise dependent as well. On a bicep curl, go crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's like the amount of centricity that's going to build up is nothing. But if you go to 0 reps on reserve on a deadlift, like she hip hinged today, and she had to sit down after a set.
Oh, I go ahead.
So it's because like the amount of
So hard.
your body,
Yeah.
it's like she needs to sit and chill. So again, this is like reps on reserve, train to failure. It doesn't really fucking matter. 1, you've got to enjoy it, and 2, as long as you're making progression, who gives a shit?
Yeah. It is. There's definitely that undercurrent to managing recovery as well, and fatigue, because sometimes it's almost like that could be a guideline to give you an air of, okay, so we're pushing into week 5 of the meso, and how you want, if you're leading into a deload, whether it would be more appropriate to have that week of, I know Joe calls it like death week, when everything ramps up and then you go into a deload. But again, I like what you touched on there about deloads, because it's always been quite a grey area.
Deloads are quite, they're interesting ones, because like there's so many different modalities how to do it, and a deload for me is just to get freshness back. Like, one job you can't be arsed going to the gym, probably should take a little bit of time away from it. Do you know what I mean? If like you can't go in and you don't want to attack sets and all this, like you're mentally just not there, that's one of the signs. Of sleep's off, digestion's off. All of these things can definitely then play a role in your body saying, okay, I need a little bit of a break from it. But for me, the best way to deload, in my opinion, is depending how battered you are. Right, if you've been an idiot and you're not listening to your body, take 3 to 4 days off completely, and then run 3 to 4 devolume sessions where you're doing 50% of the load. And if, say, for example, you're doing the whole top set back off shit, like do the upper end of the back off sets, and you still push hard, but you don't take any 50-50 reps. And I think that's one of the best ways to do recovery. But as I said, like, I'm a big believer in, I'm a little bit tired now. I don't know, because I've been up early and I've done cardio and all that this morning. My legs are a little bit heavy. So when I go to my low body session tomorrow, I'm going to see how I feel. And if my legs still feel a bit heavy, I'm just going to do 1 set of hack squats and not 2. Because at the end of the day, it's like, as you said before, like you had the podcast before us about recovery. That is the aim of the game. Like, you need to recover so then you can grow and develop. Like, me and Chan talk about this all the time. Like, I'm trying to get Chan on like my push-pull off-low so we can train together. But we know deep down that she struggles to recover from that amount of training frequency. Now, is that because of her old job or whatnot? We don't really know. But we know what she does now works, because she trains 2 days on, then she has 1 day off, then she trains, she has a day off, then she trains and she has a day off. She has loads of recovery in between sessions. And she's IFBB prone, she trains 4 days a week. So it just goes to show you don't need to train 6.
I just didn't make any progress off 5 days of that.
It
I don't
is-
know whether that was just because I was post-show or whatever, but 4 days a week works for me. And I think it is, you know, it is just person dependent,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Makes
Like,
sense.
I literally wasn't making any progress week on week, and then switched to 4 days. So much better.
I also
Okay.
think how strong you are plays a role.
Mm.
If you're a very, very strong individual and you're picking up 70k dumbbells and chest pressing them, and or you're hip hinging 240 or something like that, and you've got a proper job, like you've got a normal life as well, like you run a business or you're a lawyer or you just work a job as an accountant, so you've got to take that kind of thing into the six, because if you've got, like, especially when it comes up to like the end of the year and you're an accountant, your stress is going to be through the roof. And you're a strong individual, you won't be able to train 5 days a week. There's very few people, unless you are very, very committed to the sport and you can live the lifestyle of the sport, who can train over 5 days a week. I'll argue that.
And to be honest, you know, on most rotations, if you're doing, even if it's specific, so say you're doing like quads, calves, and something from the upper or whatever, and then you go back to doing a full lower body day, and that's 3 or 4 days later, you still feel it if you're training hard from 3 to 4 days before. And then it's that managing fatigue in between. And most of the sessions you can end up thinking, oh fuck, I'm back to that body part again, even if you split it up and do a rotation, unless you're able to completely split that up. But then when I go back to when I first started out, it was like 3 full lower and 2 full upper, and it's like I'm fucked all the time, whether it's off season or prep. I'm fucked all the time.
Yeah, that's why push pull off lower for me is the perfect split. The issue with that is trying to have a life with it, Joe, because like she does 4 days a week and then I can do 4 to 5 sessions a week depending on the split, if that makes sense, on how the day structure. But it means like we don't get Sunday together. There's that, like, and like that's the hard part when it comes to like that continually rotating sort of sessions where it's not on set days.
I much prefer it being on set days. I think if you have I don't know, I like complete routine. So like I know that every week I train legs on Saturday. Like when I start, because that's the way I was doing mine, so it wasn't like 2 on 1 off, and I was doing 4 days 1 week, 5 another week. But I hated the fact that days changed. And I think if you've got a job, for example, like for me, the way I do my training is, because I work 4 days, Tuesdays, Friday, I do my 2 weekday sessions, my easier sessions when I'm working. So I do like, it's like push and pull. It's push and pull, but the pull has got no like hip hinge in it. So it's just like basically just back.
Yeah. And
then my bigger sessions are when I'm off work at a weekend. So that's what works best for me. I think if people are working like a 9 to 5, try and keep your bigger sessions at the weekend and when you're off work, because you're so much more mentally in it as well. There's nothing worse than training legs after work. There is nothing worse. There's just no, I don't know how you switch that mindset on.
No, literally. And like you say there, you know, if you are working 9 to 5, you've got to work around it.
It's just, for me, that by far works 100 times better, you know, doing them bigger sessions when I'm off.
And if, of course, your job and your lifestyle, it means that you have to train certain days at certain times, then that need for recovery, if you are doing back-to-back sessions and you are going to overlap on, you know, some leg stimulation back-to-back or whatever, the recovery management, it's massive, and you have to have that nailed. It's hard, and things like deloads are going to be much more appropriate for someone that is training that way, of course.
Or do you know what I'll do as well? Just look at training volume. Just look at the training volume. It's like, I think everyone looks up training programs and go, okay, I've seen X person do this, so I can do this. It's like, you don't know how X person's been training for how long. You don't know what their stack is. Especially if you're just a normal person and you're looking at someone like, I don't know, looking at Cuba, right? So something like that. And it's like, I'm going to do Cuba. It's like, Cuba lives and breathes this shit. It's like, we speak about it all the time. It's like, he lives and breathes it. It's like, he can just train when he wants. Well, he trains at 1 o'clock. So I know between 1 and 4 o'clock if he's training, I'm not getting a message back. So it's like, and I respect that a lot. So it's like, he trains at 1 o'clock. And then 4 o'clock, and then if he wants a nap, he can have a nap in the day. On a rest day, he gets a massage. It's like most people don't have that lifestyle, so it's like you can't potentially do the amount of volume he does. But me and him go back and forth on this as well. As like, he's very much on it with me in recovery, because for my size, I'm quite strong at hip hinging. So it's like I have to be careful that I don't get overzealous with things that because I'm not the best sleeper. It's like I've got to make sure I don't overdo it with training as well. And it's hard sometimes because people love it. And that's something I want to get across here. It's like just because you love something doesn't mean it's necessarily what we should be doing, if that makes sense. Because you love doing a triple drop set on a leg extension, what's more important? The byproduct of the result. So the result or the enjoyment of the training session. So if you want to become a better athlete, the result's more important. So you've got to do what you need to do. But if you're just a person who loves to train and annihilate himself, you go ham to hog. It's like enjoy yourself as much as you can, understanding that you're not going to potentially become the best physical version of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Also, it sort of feeds into, mainly if it's a lifestyle client, they may prefer to go to the gym, have the reps in reserve as a guide, take more enjoyment from sort of going around the gym, doing a nice workout, and you've agreed the format. And it's not as geared towards, okay, we're going to stage. Your feedback was this last time. We've got to really ramp it up to get you where you need to be to progress as an athlete. So there's those considerations as well, of course.
100%. And I love the thing with reps reserve and Gen Pop though. This is something I will say is, unless you've got a Gen Pop who has been brought up, because we spoke about this last time, like sporting nature, who understands what training hard is. Like if you got up and used to do swimming before school, it's like they know what hard life is.
Yeah,
sure. 5:30 in the morning. But most people, if they've just done an office job and they've never really stepped foot in the gym, they probably don't know what failure is. Because I think that's where the grey areas of reps and reserve is. Is it what they perceive as failure, or is it what mechanical failure is? And I think that's where it's a little bit harder for people who are just coming into the gym to understand. And maybe a better terminology would be, I want you to train until you physically can't do anymore. And that could be like, that's failure for them. And then it's like, I want you to do one. If you couldn't do one more, just leave it one shy, and that might be one rep for them. Instead of saying reps away from failure, because like China's failure compared to, I don't know, Susan's failure who works and will be completely different. It'll be a completely different perception of what it is.
Again, there's an overlap into bodybuilding in general. We've spoken about it with both of you on the pod separately about this sort of hype on social media and everything. You mentioned like someone might follow Cuba and go, I'm going to do that. And I was actually training at our new gym the other day, and the gym owner was saying, I took on a new client, young lad, but he's been bodybuilding for a few years. Well, he said he had. And he was like, right, okay, so hack squat, and we're going to go 2 reps in reserve. And then they went through it and they went to failure, and the guy said it was his failure and hit 8 reps. And then he went, come on, you got more. And he got to 22 reps. And he was like, people do not know what failure is.
I feel like we all don't know, like it's like an evolving definition in your own mind.
Yeah.
Because like
but your level of this is where probably like the joy of the podcast comes with me and
Right.
I think what China's perceived level of failure is people's forced reps.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Is like,
but that's taken time to develop. I do think about
that's
a bit of a screw.
Yeah, that's developed since you were a child.
I think it's now greater than what it was before.
Yeah,
I think that's the same as we said for everybody.
Yeah, I think
it becomes
environment.
Yeah, environment. It's the same like if you're training and you're a bit competitive with someone, you're going to probably get more reps than if you weren't, and that's a mindset thing. Isn't it?
Yeah. But again, if we come back to Gen Pop and they're going to a pure gym at 6 o'clock, it's like that mindset that environment would be very, very hard to replicate. Like, whereas a couple of weeks ago we went to Rotherham and like loads of people on legs, like Cuba and Meg, few for Cuba's clients, a few people come abroad because it was Cuba's event. Me and her were on legs, and it's like, fuck yes, like let's see who dies. Like that was like the mentality. It's like, let's see who just can't make it out alive here.
I can imagine.
But like if me and China went to train tomorrow, we could try and replicate that, and we will push each other. But the environment wouldn't be everyone in that gym doing the same thing. So environment does play a massive role. And I think, again, there's all these things that come into training that people just think it's sets, reps, and making progressive overload. And progressive overload is massively important. But again, it's something that people take the piss out of. It's like,
it's so like,
it's like you're not adding 5 kilograms to a weight every single week unless the first time you start doing that exercise, you train like a pussy.
Yeah, but where would it end? Like, if you're going to train for 25 years, you're not going to up the load every week, are you?
No, and I think, and like, look, like we all get overzealous, don't we? We always go, just something right, and like, I want to show off here, like if someone's watching and I want to show how strong I am and all this kind of thing. But it's like, if we actually just made small progression, and it's something I will give her hats off to her, it's like she's very good at using biscuits.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, in my opinion, one of the, and she's also very good at sticking to the plan. Because like I'm a training nerd, and I'll happily admit this about myself, I'm very, very curious every single time I train to go, I wonder if this will be better.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this will be better.
Yeah.
I've learned this off cast this week.
This is our biggest debate in the gym, because Ali loves to change when we occasionally.
I don't necessarily change. I don't
program.
change split, but I can change exercises quite quick. And it's like, I'm going to tweak the setup, but I also think that is my downfall as well. Like, I won't change the big movements like a hip hinge, but when it comes like we're quite lucky we've got a bit of prime kits in our gym. It's like, no, the single arm prime, we might be doing a single arm prime row. It's like, okay, instead of setting on the like chest bolts, instead of 3, I'm going to put it to 2, so I'm a little bit closer. But last week I've done it on 3, so load is going to be different. And it's like, if I just stop being a dickhead and stop changing things, but then you're taking the enjoyment out of it for me then.
Yeah, and it's intrigue, isn't it? It's like there's certain things I do, like a little tweak, and you think, fucking hell, I felt like somewhere slightly differently. I'm like, this is cool, but you can't do it too much.
But she hates that.
I absolutely despise it. Like, even like we trained together the other week, and me and you swap the order of the exercise, and I was like, I hate this, because then I'm like, this is not consistent. It messes with my OCD.
Yeah. And like, and again, this is where like,
it's where we're different. That's all it is.
It's very different, but it's like, again, as I said, like when it comes to China, especially when like I'm helping you or something like that, it's like there's times in which I can say things, there's times I've just got to shut up.
Yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, like, she's better than me. Like she's better than me at the sport, and she's got a chance to go very, very far in it. And what she's done's work. Just, I think a few things could just be tweaked a little bit more. And again, that's where I can just come in and tweak a little bit. But as I said, when it comes to like the heavy shit, I just watch and go. I just watch everybody else look at it, and like I'm just like, yeah. It's like when we were training Rodham, I split squats to 54, and then China goes and gets to 60s, and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Fucking hell.
You've got to beat him, that's right.
Yeah, I just sit back down. And
I mean, as well, it's, I guess when people are listening, depending on where they're at on their journey, a lot of first timers listen, of course. Now, China's like that pinnacle of training. I watch you train on Instagram, and I'm like, this is so fucking cool. But then, like we've touched on already, when you relate it back to, you know, if someone is a first time and they've just gone to training, they're just getting used to execution, a training plan, following that. It's those steps that you'd maybe take towards getting into training to failure, having more intention, those types of things. That's probably a good way to sort of, maybe for us to go through how that would look as like a first timer going through evolving as a competitor.
All right, I'll start. So like when it comes to people first starting off, I think the biggest fundamentals is training hard, and whatever that person perceives as hard first, and get the fundamentals. Like, because this we're talking about the fundamentals, maybe that's one of the things I want to speak about. So get good at a hip hinge. Don't give a shit which hip hinge it is. Just get good at it. Get good at a squatting based movement, whichever one suits you and whichever one you enjoy. Get good. It depends. Okay, female or male. If it's a female, get good at a really high incline pressing movement. If it's a male, mess around the inclines. Get good at pulling and like chest supported movements and lat bias movements, and just get good at the fundamentals and start to understand what you're capable of. And like, don't compare yourself to people like China. Like, it's like the worst thing you can do is compare yourself to someone like China who's so strong. It's like, just watch what China does, but forget about the weight on the machine.
Get a point, yeah.
And just go, okay, cool. In 6 months, I want to potentially be able to do this, and it's all relative to what you can do now. So, for example, someone's deadlifting 60 kilos, and say, okay, in 6 months, I'll love to deadlift 90.
Yep.
And it's like every single week you got add a rep, or every single week you might add the biscuits, or you might not add any weight, but the set just felt that little bit easier. And if I was the first timer, if I was 21 and I was in this again, I would literally go from I'll do DC style training, dog crap training.
Yep.
And I would just be very, very, or fortitude, and I'll be very, very patient. That's something that I wish I was when I was younger. And exactly what I said about China before is like, I said don't reference China, but I said she's very good at adding biscuits. And that is what younger people, first timers, should do. is don't add 10k to the machine. Because if you're adding 10k to the machine, as I said, like you either win training hard off the first time if you can do it the same way, or you're going to change what you did do previously. And then that standardization of the form is going to change. So you're not actually doing the same exercise. And that lack of range of movement will come back and bite you in the arse further down the line, because that's how you can potentially hurt yourself. And I don't know if you want to talk about injuries and all that in this podcast, but like it's like if you're for example on a glute drive, you're going as far you're going nearly touching the stack on the bottom, and then you start to add like one weight, and it's like instead of nearly touching it, you're like about 3 inches away, and then you're 4 inches away. The issue can be then is like if you then suddenly go to nearly touching the stack again with a bit more load than your body can handle, like that load could outweigh the tissue tolerance, then you can get an injury. Like that's Jordan Shallow's equation for injury, by the way. I just think it's a very, very good one. It's like if load outweighs tissue tolerance, then an injury is very, very likely. And again, just being patient is the aim of the game, especially if you're starting off.
I think if something's working, just keep doing it. Well, like I think, and I also reference you like changing things here and there, but I do think there's so much information out there, especially for people who don't have a coach or whatever. They'll be wanting to do whatever's new all the time. If it's working and you're progressing with it, just stick to it because it is working. And bodybuilding is not interesting, is it?
I love that. I love this.
It's just doing the same boring stuff over and over and over again and getting good at it.
Yeah. That's a very good point. It's like it's not,
and I think people make it too complicated. They make it way too complicated, and we're worried about the little things that don't matter all the time.
So I don't like it when people say make things too complicated. But it's like I agree in regards to here's a better way to word it. People try and make things too complicated, but they don't do the foundations first. So I've got all the time in the world for someone like Joe Bennett making things complicated because he trains IFBB pros. He stepped on stage himself, and for a guy who I think he's like 35, 36, he's got 3 kids, he looks shit hot and he's strong. Whereas if you got a young kid who's read a book, who's never really trained hard, and he's now trying to tell bigger people what to do, it's like stay in your lane. I think that's where you're getting these science nerds. And look, I admit I'm a bit of a nerd. I love it all right. But like you're getting these science nerds who don't walk in the gym and practice what they preach, but they're trying telling people because of data what it says, but you've never seen how the data's actually been applied. And this is where the science, there's a podcast on Cassim's doing one with Eric Helms, really, really good progress, and they talk about it because Eric Helms is like a scientific reader. And it's like, the data says this, but how it applies to real people doesn't actually work like that. And it's like, this is where, again, the complication, this is where I agree with Chan, like people are trying to take things from a scientific standpoint, but then don't apply it to the real world. And I think that's what the great way is. Like the fundamentals are the fundamentals, and they've worked for a very, very long time. Can they be better? Of course they can. Like we don't train the same way when we are athletes. Like the science is improving, but the movements are still the movements. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It all relates as well to the different phases of bodybuilding. Of course, there's like, there's a certain aspect of China. You've just gone into prep, and I meet a lot of people that go, "Oh, okay, so." I've had my height of off season. I've got the fundamentals. I've really upped my weight. My training performance is really good. All of these things. So everything we've spoken about already. And then they go into prep and they're like, oh, I'm going to have to go to maintenance now. I'm in prep. And I'm like, what do you mean? And there's that switch of like, oh, I'm in prep. So everything's gone to shit. And they're just going to maintain. But actually, I'm sure you will agree, when you go into prep, you go in with the same attitude to keep that load for as long as possible, manage your recovery, and don't stay in your own lane of your own progression and stick to the plan rather than following everyone else going, oh, I feel like shit, I'm in prep. Training performance isn't there anymore.
A lot of it's in your head.
100%, yeah.
A lot of it is in your head. I feel like you can definitely make progress, especially in the first few weeks of prep. Like when your food's still high and your output's still relatively low. Don't we, on the back end of prep, it's hard, but it's how you approach that set in your mind and knowing that, because if you get to the back end of prep and you pick that bar apart and it's like so heavy, like, and you just feel like you're going to snap, but you just got to do it anyway. Do you know what I mean? You put yourself through that off season to put that tissue on. If you want to have that when you stand on stage, you have to keep it in that prep. And the only way you're going to keep it is training like an animal and maintaining that same training intensity throughout the duration of your prep, even when you don't want to, because that's going to make the difference when you stand on stage. And from those who have done that and those who haven't, that will show on stage.
Yeah, there's just that danger of overconsumption of what everyone else is doing, isn't there? Like you say about staying focused on your own efforts and what you're trying to achieve.
And like when it comes to the back end and your diet, and like potentially instead of doing 3 sets or something, just do 2 sets.
Yeah, and then it is more maintenance.
And like you're dropping volume, but you don't drop the load.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like trying to make a good point. It's like load is what's going to keep the tissue there. If the tissue doesn't need to still handle the load that it handled before, and like look, it's stimulus, and we're trying to stimulate tissues, but it's like if the load's not there, it's like why would it stay? Like your body doesn't want too much muscle. Muscle's expensive to keep, and especially when you're fucking putting yourself in a hole, dieting. It's like I'd rather eat away tissue than fat, because fat's going to store energy. So it's like when you, and like China nailed it, like in the mindset side of things, like I think that's what separates people who do very, very, very well, and people who look like they're going to do well and haven't.
Yeah,
I think, and mindset, like we've all spoke about this before. Like mindset is massively important. Like if you're not gonna, I hate when people say go to them dark places, but if you're not going to go to them places where things get really, really uncomfortable and you're very, very tired, and you do think about giving up, but you push past it. You go to gym, even though you don't want to go to gym. You don't go, I don't want to go to gym because I'm tired. And if I'm tired, I'm not going to recover. It's like, you're supposed to be fucking tired at the back of the diet stage. It's like, you're supposed to be tired. You're supposed to not want to be in the gym. Like, that's the challenge of the sport. If we all want to go to the gym all the way through it, it's like, it wouldn't be that hard. And we all wouldn't be saying it's the hardest thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got to accept that. But again, there is things that we can do from a tweaking of volume. But again, just because you're reducing a set doesn't mean it gets easier. It just means the amount of work you may do within that session is less. But I still want to see the same weight on the bar. For as long as possible. It will potentially inevitably drop at some point, isn't it? It's like we're not going to be hip hinging what we were hip hinging at max weight, but it shouldn't drop by 50%.
Yeah, this is what you do see it.
Yeah. I just you should just try to aim to progress for as long as physically possible.
Yeah, exactly that.
Shouldn't ever go off, really.
Well, like you said, when you're at the height of off season, like you're pushing a lot of calories. I mean, we're not talking for everyone because everyone's individual. There's different routes, assisted versus natural. It's going to be a slight difference there, but your calories are high. When you first go into prep, it's not always a massive drop. Do you know what I mean? We spoke about before we jumped on things like cutting out off plan snacks and macros a bit. So you've still got fat stores there. And my coach had this conversation with me right at the start of my journey. He was like, you're not hungry, you've still got fat stores there. And I was like, yeah, but I'm in prep, it's really hard. And I was like 2 days in, and it's like, no, you haven't automatically lost all of that food you'd had for 10, 12 months, however long that is.
Yeah.
No, you're completely right there. And I think we said this before the podcast started. Like, it's as soon as you got told you can't have it.
Oh yeah.
That's when you're like, oh, I just want a crunchy. It's like,
I'm tired. I'm tired.
It's just that restrict. But unfortunately, that's the aim of the game. Isn't that the sport that we play? It's like, that's what if you. And I hate when people go, oh, it's so restricted the sport. It's like, well, don't play it then. Do you know what I mean? It's like you don't have to do it. No one's stopping you going to Mackey's. It's like, but if you want to be the best version of you, you've got to be very, very self-aware of what you can handle, consume. And it's like, if you want to do very, very well, like I'm not a big fan of if it fits your macros and how it's been perceived on Instagram. Like I'm not a big fan of it. It's like, for me, if it fits your macros, instead of minced beef, you're going to have salmon, and you're tweaking your macros with potentially extra fat that's in the salmon instead of the minced beef. But you're still having a fattier source of protein and fat. Instead of going, I'm having a dairy milk today, I want to fit the rest of my diet around the dairy milk. It's like, I think that's where it's been abused a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to prep, it's like, unfortunately, like that dairy milk isn't going to help you from an internal standpoint. It might from a mental standpoint, but from an internal standpoint, get you to where you want to be. And it's like, that's where, but this, like I said, this is the sport that we play. It's like we play a restricted sport and an extreme sport.
Yeah, and I think there is space for these things, particularly in off season. We've spoke about it on both of the pods with you guys. Like off season, you're having meals out with your partner, you're enjoying things, whatever. That's part of that per se. And what we pour into a prep, certainly the three of us, it's no fucking around. It's tunnel vision, and that's just how it is, and that's how we do it. But like you say there, very good point, and I think we should highlight that because something like fitting a little dairy milk in, okay, like you say, mentally it's like, oh, this is quite nice, I'm having a dairy milk with a cup of tea, whatever. Is that going to help you in a deficit to perform hard in the gym, to manage hunger, to help recovery? No, it's not. And I see this a lot. It's a big difference in how people progress in the sport. And I don't want to, you know, if someone's listening and they're like, I have a dairy milk a day, fine, okay. But in prep for me, it's not doing anything to help me keep onto the muscle tissue, stay recovered, and last the whole prep, of course.
Yeah, of course. And I think this is where, like, look, it's like everyone gets to decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like people's mindsets and people's perception of things. Like, it's cool. Like, look, if like we're friends with Becky Dean, she's like the queen of if it fits your macros. Like she is. But I wouldn't function well like that. It's like,
no, I think it depends if you're robotic and not like if you like being a bit of a robot and that works into your life. Like for me as well, it's like I have to plan everything in advance because I want to run a tight ship. And I have to meal prep every day. Eating the same food every day of my life works well because I know that it's ready in the fridge. But it might not work for other people, you know?
And what I will say about Beck is, like I said, she's queen of fit your macros, but what she'll do is she'll make like a Turkish meal. Do you know what I mean? Like she'll make still whole foods. It's not like she's going, you know, something right, I'm gonna have this as a dairy milk bar. Like that's not her main thought. Her main thought is, okay, I'm gonna have 4 meals of whole foods, and then if I've got a little bit more calories left, I'm gonna fit this in. Like she does it, in my opinion, how it should be done. Now, getting back to like this whole if it fits your macros thing as well, it's like I think people are trying to make the sport easy.
Yeah, agreed.
And just accessible.
And like it should be accessible. It should be, but it's like,
well, yeah, it is accessible. I mean, like, to like, you know, logs won't want to go on meal.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
I agree with what you're saying. It's like what she's saying. It's like we're trying to make it more appealing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like for me, bodybuilding is like doing an ultra marathon. You either fucking love running or you don't. If you want to run for that long, fucking crack on. But that's like my worst nightmare. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, and bodybuilding, dieting down to ridiculously lean condition shouldn't be for everyone. Like it shouldn't be for everyone. And I think this is where the sport, I think, will do a U-turn at some point, where people start going, do you know something, right? I like doing photo shoots. And instead of trying to step on stage where you're compromising your health ridiculously, or you're not willing to push the condition that you need to get into, then don't do the sport.
Yeah, I like you. That's so true.
If you don't want to do an hour's cardio and then be on 1,200 calories and then do 15,000 steps and then go and train legs, but you have to do that, the sport might not be for you. If you want to compete at a very good level, that is, by the way, if you want to hold your own on stage, that's unfortunately sometimes what you have to do to get into condition. And then there's no rules. You just need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, this is definitely a tricky. I have this conversation with Matt a lot.
Yeah.
Me, I've always seen bodybuilding as you start a prep, you almost give your life over to your coach. So it's like I signed the invisible contract. I do what my coach fucking says, and I don't question it. I then do that till I get to the stage. I do everything I meant to, and then I compete, and that's my choice. And you ain't gonna catch me moaning about it. And I'm happy to push. Now, I thought that was just me when I was in my little bubble, my first, portion of competing. And when I started to sort of be on the scene a bit more, get to know other competitors, there's a very different mindset. And that mindset is completely opposite to mine. And I feel like it's much more present now in the sport. And I find it hard. It sounds like you're going to be similar, guys. I get a little bit like, why is it like this? Why are people moaning all the time? Why are people like, oh, well, do I have to do cardio? I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm like, what has happened to the sport?
I do moan, but I will do it. I will always do it, but I'll have a whinge about it.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Moaning about being like, if she moans to me about being tired, that is cool. But if she wrote a story on Instagram and started moaning about being fucking, telling everyone, my response, I'd fucking mess on Instagram. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, and this is what I mean. I don't.
I feel like everybody gets on a bit of a hype about it. It's like one month and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm tired too. I'm tired too," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're meant to be tired."
Yeah, it's like what you expect.
No one's sleeping.
It's like it's what you expect. It's like, yeah, I'm having trend sweats too. Great. You know what I mean? It's like my bed is piss wet through.
Yeah, that's like Matt. That's like for fuck's sake.
It's great. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, I think you've made a very good point there. It's like, I don't get, you don't have to do it. This is why I don't get why people complain. It's like, you don't have to go to the gym. It's like no one's holding a gun to your head. It's not how you're putting food on the plate for your family for the majority of people. So it's like, you can, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's cool. You can just enjoy training, and I said doing photo shoots and things like that. But there are people who love pushing themselves, and like, you'll never find me complain. I will huff and puff, and I might be quiet when I'm tired. But at the end of the day, the reason why I don't complain is because I know I don't need to do it. Me and Pete, like Lewis Rhino, and he made this very, very good point, and I've heard this before, we made it again. Prep is a privilege. It's a privilege to choose to eat less food.
Yeah, because there's people in the world that don't get that choice.
Like, we're the sat, well, Johnson, right? It's like, I'm not going to eat as much food as what I can financially afford today. That's what we're doing. And it's like, that is such a privileged position to be in for the rest of the world. So why the fuck are you moaning?
And like China said, like, I definitely, Rob said this on the pod, China, and I know you work with Rob on mindset, etc.
Yeah.
There's that 5 minutes where you go, I'm fucking knackered, to your other half. You're at home, you're in, your safe space, as it were, and whatever, and you get it out there. But like you said, there's a difference when you're publicizing it. And I don't know about you guys, but it upsets me when I see that that's being put out and this first timers watching going, oh, that's what prep is. You moan about it on your Instagram stories. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. The more I find the more that if you wake up when you're tired, the more that you play on that for the day, the worse it is. If you tell yourself, I'm not tired today.
Yeah.
Pretend that you're not tired.
Yes, I try this.
Like, it does. Like, well, it doesn't completely go away, but it feels so much better than if you just sit milking it in your own brain all day.
Yeah,
like,
completely good. Because we all speak about mindset, don't we? It's like the training and diet for people who live this kind of lifestyle is piss easy. You just do a little bit more of it and eat less of it.
Yeah.
But the mindset thing is the hardest thing when it comes to prep, because one, Instagram's an amazing thing. Like, we will all know each other. Like, she wouldn't have slid into my DMs, and like, we wouldn't have started speaking. Sorry, that's that one. But anyway, it's like
what happened.
It is. But anyway, it is. But anyway, it's like, we wouldn't know. But the issue with Instagram is you compare. Like, that's one of the hard things. Like, that's where the mental game's coming into. Because like China admit this. Like, she goes, oh, have you seen this girl? She looks massive. It's like, but what does she weigh? It's like, I don't know. It's like, she looks big on Instagram. It's like, you don't know what they look like.
It is like everybody,
because everyone compares, don't they?
Everybody does it.
Yeah,
but it's like when you're in prep, that you have very little energy anyway. You may as well worry about what you can control, and what you can't, do not waste that energy on it, because you don't have enough anyway.
Yeah. Right.
100%. I don't know. I know on my last prep, I just compared 24/7, and it's just so counterproductive, and it does absolutely nothing for you, because everyone can look at it on Instagram. No one's going to post a shit check-in. No one's going to put. They're not. So they're only going to post what's good about them. So you're going to compare their best bits to when you're feeling shit, and it's pointless.
Yeah, 100%.
And if we relate this back to training as well, if you compare to other people training, so we touched on this already, but if you then start to try and execute someone else's, you've cobbled together what their plan might be. It's not specific to your physique, of course. Then there's that to consider.
No, and that's the thing where, like, there's nothing wrong to take inspiration from people.
No,
I think that's what Instagram's great for. Like, I've worked with Kuba from the shit he's putting on Instagram. It's like he was working with No Switch Fitness, Luke Miller. I thought, fair play to the guy. Like, he's put a lot into his education. Like, I'd love to see what he could do with me. Like, I worked with Cal for a long time. I was like, I'm interested by another approach. And I said, me and Kuba, we get on really, really well. And that's what's great about Instagram, because you get to see, like, people, like, get inspired by other people, so the way they talk or what they may be trying to advertise on social media. But
also staying
you can also, like, get very distracted and go, why aren't I doing that? Why can't I be like that? And it's like, at the end of the day, like, Oscar, we took Oscar home a couple of days ago, Oscar Young, and he's like the greatest human in the world. It's like, I've never been so scared driving, because I'm like, I can't crash. Not asked for the kill here, but I can't kill the greatest human on the planet. But he made a good point. It's like, you where you are, where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You are where you're supposed to be in life. So it's like, what's the point comparing this? As we spoke about this before, you just take control of what you control. We can control our training. We can control our nutrition. We can control our posing. We can't control what the judges say about us.
Yeah.
And it's a subjective sport.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to get down their head. It's subjective. Some people might not like your glutes.
Yeah.
Deal with it. And just take feedback on what you need to improve. But if you disagree with them and you're not asked about getting a profile like that, you go, just I'm quite happy with my glutes are. Well, I want to grow my delts a little bit more. Grow your fucking delts.
I know you said that once. You were like, I want to grow my physique for me. Like something about, what do you say?
So
Something about like
a friend called Ben Shepherd said this. He went, he doesn't care what five people say what about his physique. He wants to grow what he wants to grow, and he wants it for him. And I thought that it was a very, very good point, because like, I'm not turning pro. Like, I'm not stupid. I want to do well next year. Like, I'd like to see where I can stand, but it's like, I'm not getting a pro card, that little shitty thing behind us. Like, I'm not getting that. Or a sword. I might get a sword, but I'm definitely not getting a pro sword. But anyway, it's like, but I want to stand on stage and go, I want to hit certain poses. So I would love to have the best side chest. So for a good side chest, like, what do you need? So I need probably a bit bigger arms. Don't stop barking. Bit bigger arms, glutes, and a good chest, and delt. So like I love to hit that pose and people go, fuck, that's a good shot. But when it comes to front double bicep, I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want it to be okay, but it's not the pose that I want to really hit and get a good photo of and go, that was pretty cool. And like, that's how I look at bodybuilding, where she looks at it from a different lens, because she needs to beat the 1% to the 1%. So she needs to potentially create what the judges want to some degree.
Hard. It is that there is that element of you almost have to then conform to a certain degree of what the criteria is, because China's pushing into very, very set criteria, same federation, etc. Maybe this sort of relates to as well for the listeners that are competing with multiple federations, that actually, if you're going to do that, look at a timeline and maybe choose the one that's most important to you with that federation, to maybe prioritize a little bit more. I'm not saying the rest of them wouldn't be prioritized, but leading into that being your main one, because the criteria, of course, is set for, especially IFBB. It's like, this is the criteria and that's it.
Yeah.
No,
No.
but like getting back to like bringing this back to training, and then that will determine what your training split should be.
It will, yeah.
Based off either my mentality, where it's like, I want to bring up X, Y, and Z because I want to hit X, Y, and Z top, or hers, where it's like she might get feedback on, I don't know, she needs bigger calves. Probably not going to be that one. I've just decided to choose that body part.
Feedback? That would be funny.
I have quite small calves.
But it's like, okay, so she needs to bring her calves up the next time she competes. So that's what the training will be prioritized around.
Yeah.
But they might go best back on stage. So it's like, okay, I probably need to touch back once a week, but I need to hit my calves 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And again, that's how the training split would then be determined. And the training volume then will be spread out more frequency for calves, and back might get a fair bit of a hit whack, but just once. And again, that's how training's so individualized. And that's how you basically design a training program to get you the best results ever.
Yeah. And like you said as well, if you're right back at the start, you know, if you're on a training plan and it's working, why fuck around with it? But also that muscle memory there, and Ali said, you said it might be a bit of a weakness of yours, but you like it and it brings enjoyment to tweak things. Actually, there's definitely these sort of myths around training, particularly Gen Pop, I'd say, that it's like, oh, so I do 6 weeks of that and then I change every single exercise and I do 6 weeks of that. And maybe there might be someone listening going, well, that's what I do, because it's this like, it's that magpie effect. Oh, that's a shiny glute exercise, I'm going to do that. And I've learned the hard way with this. I'm not saying I haven't done this, because I have, but it's, you've just got to get what works and stick to it. And like you said earlier, China, it is pretty boring when you look at it. It's like, you just got to do every day. Crack the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, let me just get this right. When China keeps saying the change splits, I was on push, pull, off, lower for a little bit, and then we decided to like try and like match up our sessions.
Yeah.
So I went. It is true. It's exactly true.
We trained pull together twice.
No.
Changed both of the sessions.
No. So what we're going to do now? I only changed the second time because Cuba told me to put line hamstring curl before the hip hinge.
Yeah.
I never changed it, which pissed me off because I lifted less load. So I wasn't happy about the change. But anyway, but then I went back to doing push pull because again it worked better for me. And like I spoke to Cuba about it, it's like I have to be. I love training with China. I really, really do. Yeah. But it does work better for me. I understand it's not a structured approach in regard to like we don't have set days, but I train at 1 o'clock every day anyway.
Yeah, I like
that's that's what's important as well, is like doing what works for you and
Yeah.
not being swayed by like other people or your training partner or whatever it is, because you definitely do this. And that's what we've talked about this recently, is like, you know, sticking what works, especially for you, and not like saying, oh, well, my training partner's doing this exercise, so I'm going to do that with them. Like, because it might not work for you, and you do like to train with other people and like help them with their splits, but it might not necessarily be what works for you.
Yeah, but let me just add that that's my decision.
Yeah,
like, I'm aware of doing that. So like,
Yeah.
I was training Nathan for a while. And, like, we brought Nathan's back up ridiculous. Like, I reckon he's going to do very well this year. So watch him this year. But anyway, it's like I will, because I know I'm not competing until next year as well. It's like I will just help him as much as I can, and like he's helping me from a gut health perspective. So you give and take, don't you?
Yeah.
But as Chan said, if you want to make you the best, you've got to focus on yourself.
Yeah.
I said like I will. Let's be honest. Like, if it comes to push up over me or Chan, it's like I'm always going to help her best, because she's got the chance to do something that most people don't ever dream of.
Sure.
Like that's the fact. If it could, like, if it was I can't train because China needs something, then I don't train. It's as simple as that. And like, will it piss me off? Yeah, because I love training, but at the same time, I'll still do it. But whereas I wouldn't expect her to do that for me when she's in prep, because as I said, she's got something that very, very few people can attain. And I think you've got to also then put life in a priority scale.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this from a passion and a love. Business, to show I walk the walk and practice what I preach.
Oh, yep.
She's the creme de la creme in regards to like the percentile of the world who can actually do this. So it's like, again, like I will always put her needs before mine when it comes to competing and training. Like, because that, in my opinion, that's only fair. And then hopefully she will pay me back with loads of money and maybe maybe give me a shout out on Instagram when she's all famous and all that shit.
But also contextually, you know, there's very different federations, there's very different divisions available. Again, it's something I maybe was a bit naive to when I started in the sport. It was like, you know, all of the federations are equal. It wasn't like, oh, if you wanted an IFBB pro card and you were pursuing that, how different that would be if you were going to an amateur show, and you might get a pro card at an amateur show, but it's not the same as if you're getting your IFBB pro card, competing internationally and pursuing that. And there is definitely, I guess, lessons to learn in this sport as to how seriously you're going to take it. Like you've said, China is pretty genetically elite, good sporting background, and she's done really well in the sport and is pursuing that, and the mindset around that as well. I think this is a big key consideration that we've covered already. But what are you doing this for? What is it worth, that risk reward? And, you know, essentially, if you don't enjoy the training, which is a big element that we've spoken about today, try something else, try a new hobby, you know?
Definitely.
100%.
I think people, and I spoke about this recently, like a little bit off topic, but it's like, you need to enjoy being present in where you are right now.
Yeah.
You know, there is so much fixation, and I've been there myself at my last prep, but on where you want to be, like that you forget to be present, enjoy your training session, enjoy your food, enjoying what you're doing right now in that particular day, being so fixated on like, oh, like, I don't know, you want to win a PCA show or you want to win your pro card, and forgetting the whole journey and being grateful for, you know, how far you've come and being excited for the future. That's okay, but focusing on the here and now is really, I find that's really, really important, and a massive regret of mine, like up to now, and something that I think, you know, if you're coming into this sport, is definitely something that I would encourage everybody to be mindful of, because that time you'll never get back. Like, you know, if you do a full prep, you do a 20-week prep, and you spend the whole time whinging about it, and you get your card, and you weren't present for any of it, you might never do another prep again. You'll never get that back, you know. And I think just being present is super important.
But it's the same with training, isn't it?
It's the same with training, like not thinking, like when you said about, oh yeah, okay, so it's good to set goals, saying, oh, I want to do 100 kilo deadlifts in 6 months time, but be great at lifting 60 now, and be happy lifting 60 now, because probably last week you've done like 50. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's being happy with where you are at the present, because there's always going to be someone better than you. You're always going to be someone stronger than you, you know, and it's just being happy with where you are right now.
I think also just to add on this. Just to add to this, like, you know, that people don't wait to start either. Do you know what I mean? Like, step on stage and find out where you are. Like, I don't mean this to get deep, but like, my uncle passed about 3 weeks ago now, and on his funeral, my cousin read something that my uncle used to say is like, don't put off things that you want to do, just do it. Like, just like that. It's like, so if you're someone who's wanting to compete, it's like, just do it.
Give it a go.
And see where you stand, because you might not enjoy it, but you also might fucking love it. And it's also like, you meet cool people, you meet people who are as weird as you. Like, don't put it off if you're not ready. It's like, because if you have that mindset, you'll never be ready.
You'll never, because there's always going to be, no matter what level you're at, there's always something bigger and better to achieve, unless you miss Olympia, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's always something bigger and better, so you just may as well go and do it now. You know?
Also, if you don't give it a try, it's like, do you know if it's for you?
Yeah,
exactly. And it's the same with training as well. It's like, if you're someone who's not been to the gym and you're dead nervous, it's like, just do it. Just go on day pass and just go. And then, you know something, you might actually go, fuck, that was actually quite fun. Or that was actually quite cool. Didn't know I could do that. And then you go and buy a week pass. And then you buy 1 month. And then you set up a direct debit. And then you go and hire a coach. It's like, I want to learn how to get better at this. But unless you ever just go for that one session and that day pass, you'll never find out. So it's like, just do it. Like, at the end of the day, like, for people, everyone thinks we stare at them. And unless you're doing something fucking really stupid, like an upside down, like Spider-Man kind of exercise, no one gives a shit, because everyone's so focused on what they need to do. And honestly, especially like it is, like, bodybuilding gets a bad rep, right? Look, there are some dickheads in this sport.
Yeah, there is.
But the majority of the people in the sport are fucking really cool. And it doesn't matter. Like, one of my greatest moments, like, Mark Hector was working with Cal, and we were down at Shreds. Now, Mark Hector was training. He was trying to qualify the Olympia, wasn't he, at the time, right? He took 30 minutes out of his training session to come and help me pose. Didn't need to do that. And it was like, it was so fucking good. I was sweating my ass off, by the way.
It was like middle of summer.
I was dripping.
Boiling hot summer. And I was like, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going horrendous. Like, great experience.
Yeah, but like, Mark is like China, like the creme de la creme in this country. And he still took 30 minutes out of his day, out of his training session, by the way, to come and help me. And it's like, that's, in my opinion, that's what the majority of the industry is like.
Yeah.
Fortunately, some of the dickheads sort of take the shine off it a little bit.
Yeah. But that when you meet the people with a similar mentality, whatever your mentality is to this sport, when you get that, catch that vibe and you pursue it a little bit, it's like, actually, this is pretty cool. And I think we probably covered it on both the individual episodes we did, when you're like, you sort of gravitate away from your school friends and stuff that you don't really have anything in common. And then you get like best friends through the sport and you're like, this is sick. Like, we're all, you know, a little bit mentally unstable, but we share it.
Yeah.
Like, we are weird. Like, no, like, you could, like,
yeah, we are. I like that though.
Yeah, I'm trying to debate it. Like, is it weird because we don't go and drink every Friday night? It's like,
I know.
That actually people want to drink every Friday night and can't remember the week. It's like, I have this debate here all the time, but we're not the norm.
Yeah.
Like, we aren't. Like, we weigh our fucking chicken breasts. It's a little bit strange, but at the same time, it's like, you do meet people like me and here would probably never have met to be both weighing into the gym, and like, I don't know if that would have been a good thing or bad thing, but anyway, but it's like, we would never have met. It's like, we would never have met our friends if it wasn't for this sport, and built up the great friendships and relationships that we have. So it's like,
it just takes a specific type of individual.
Yeah, for sure.
To do bodybuilding and enjoy it, and therefore, because those specific type of individuals all do the same thing, you're all kind of like each other, so you're all gonna get on, you know. And I don't know.
It's like when you're at a show and you whack out your Tupperware, and then your mate whack out your Tupperware, and you share a little bit of hot sauce. It's like,
oh, can I borrow your salt?
Yeah.
Now, love it. Now, before we wrap up, I'm gonna have to ask you a random as fuck question, but it is related to training. Where do you stand on pre-workout?
As in like supplementation.
Yeah, so Matt and I were having this conversation the other day, and I've just thought, I'm gonna have to ask these two. We have a Monster, but I used to use the powdered pre-workout, and I said to Matt, I fucking hated it, and I used it for so long. But for me, when it's stimmy and it tastes like shit, I'm like, why was I doing that? But then I don't know.
I feel like it just makes me feel. For the first like half an hour, I feel great.
Yeah.
and then I will feel
Right.
horrendous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I make a big come down off it.
My answer to this would be like, it depends on which one and how you can tolerate it. So the way I can describe this, like I used to have MVP.
Yeah.
Me and Beck used to have MVP. We'll take it, we'll train, and then we'll both have to go for a nap for an hour. Whereas I can handle something like, I don't know, Stimumax or like Conte's. What's Conte's one called? Oh, it's a conviction. I'm fine. But again, it's like the issue is like if you abuse caffeine, and like obviously the other things come to, but if you've had like 3 coffees and then you're having a pre-workout, maybe a little bit too much for you. I would never probably take, unless you're feeling a bit of a dickhead that day, a pre-workout at night. I think that's very, very counterproductive.
Train. Like I'll have a Monster before I train. Either we're training midday, but after work I won't have anything.
Yeah, I'm the same.
You're not sleep. It massively impacts on your sleep.
Yeah. And caffeine's got a half-life, hasn't it? So like if you have say 100 milligrams, then you have another one, it accumulates as the day goes on.
Yeah.
So you've got to take that into consideration. But I'm a fan of them. I like them. I do like them. I do like it.
Habit, and it's like people get into it as like they like the buzz, but it's also like a ritual, ritual, isn't it? Like
they will meet up.
Yeah. You're also like dry scooters. Struggle. In my opinion, certain pre-workouts, yes, definitely have a benefit. The issue is those when you start to rely on it. So like if you finish your tub and it's like, oh shit, I'm not gonna be able to hit a PB now. It's like that's a mindset thing. But I do think there's certain ingredients within certain pre-workouts that are definitely beneficial. Do you need them? No. Or can they be beneficial? Yes.
I mean, monsters are delicious as well.
What flavour are you?
I was just going to ask you that. I love the OG white.
Yeah.
See, so it's like pink, like bright pink, white, and then I'm not really that last. Maybe
I like green.
Yeah, maybe green. So that'll be my order. Someone said to me they like the fucking mule. It was your bloody client, Abby.
Oh no.
I was like that one though as well. I'd never choose it. But if someone bought it me, I'd be like, oh, this is a change.
No.
Because I always get the white one because it's like, oh,
OG.
Yeah, it is. It is nice. But I do prefer the pink. You like fucking Red Bull?
I know, I'm a bit of a traitor. Like, sometimes I get a Red Bull.
So the issue with Red Bull, it reminds me of fucking uni.
No, do you know what it is? The weird thing for me is, if we're training really early in the morning, like if we went like 9 o'clock, I'd have a Red Bull. But if it's about lunchtime, I'd have a Monster. I don't know why. It's just...
She normally gets a buyer, and Red Bull's sometimes a little bit cheaper, so get her a Red Bull.
Why not?
I like a rain.
Expensive sport, so you've got to make these savings.
I like a rain. I do like a rain. I'm trying to think if there's any. I think Monster's the go-to, isn't it? Like I know you're wearing a Monster Factory top, but you sort of supplement wearing Monster. Yeah.
Get on the Monsters.
If you want a productive day in work, get a Monster and get some modafinil, and you're fly to go. That's my pre-to go-to in the morning.
And you get home, you're like, what just happened?
I get home and I know he's had it because he doesn't stop talking. Honestly, like, and I'm just like, you're way too happy. And just
it's like
I just need to like wind you down a little bit.
It's like for productivity for me, it's up there. It's like it is. If I've got shitloads of writing to write a presentation, it's like modafinil that goes. I was gutted this morning because we ran out. So I had to have a couple of copies.
Love that. Now we must say as well that China's gone more into online coaching now, and of course the listeners have now heard you on the pod a second time, and you're putting more out there on Instagram with your clients and what you're doing with them. And like I messaged you the other day, it's super cool to see because you are, both of you are coaching through the passion of the sport, and I'm sure that's very clear from you being on the podcast. And I'm not just saying that because they're on the podcast, I mean it. So if people listen and they think China seems pretty sick, I'd like her as a coach, how do they apply? Is it just DM, or have you got a setup on your page?
Just DM me. I've got like an application form on my Instagram, but if you just DM me, can you have a chat about it?
For sure. And Ali, I remember you saying on the last pod, you're like, no coaches are full. Like they haven't just got
Yeah.
space
No.
there. This is
So
hard.
unless you're Christy Chapman, you're probably not
Yeah.
full.
Yeah.
He's a busy guy with clients.
Yeah.
Well, like the same thing with me, just fill out my application form, my bio, or
Yeah.
just DM me. Like I just like chatting to people anyway about training, so just DM me anyway. So I've got friends.
Love that. Thank you guys. This was perfect for our training one. Love it. Now, China, I know you're going to be starving, so you go and get a meal because you're 3 weeks in now. Shit's getting real. Love it. But thank you so much for today, guys. You are ace.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Right. Have a lovely evening.
Okay.
You too. See you later.
Bye.